and you're listening to The Ranger on the Radar, and today we're talking about after the floods. And in the studio with me I have Olivia Katz, who's a local local documentary maker, although it's her first one, and she's an American photojournalist who emigrated from the States to Australia in 2019, fell in love with the Northern Rivers, but just in time for the bushfires, pandemic and floods in the Northern Rivers. And this documentary, her directorial debut, is inspired by this love of the Northern Rivers and its beautiful communities. So welcome to the studio, Olivia.
Thank you so much for having me, Ranger.
So tell us a little bit about, I'm always interested in what draws people to the Northern Rivers. You upped and left. Tell us how come you chose here and you landed here?
Oh, well, it was a bit of a circuitous journey up to the Northern Rivers. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and then I moved to Colorado and then Los Angeles before Australia, and just sort of got to that point in my life where I was ready for a big change, and Australia had always held this place in my imagination of, just exquisite natural beauty and wide open space, wild wilderness, and so I just kind of took a chance and came. I'd never been here before.
Wow.
So I, fingers crossed, hoped that it would welcome me, and I just fell in love with the landscape here, really, and the wildlife and the kindness of people, especially in sort of a regional area of Australia. I started off in Sydney, and then I came up here for a visit, and it was hard to believe that the beauty that I had been told about in this area was real. The rainbows and koalas and crystal clear water and the hills, and that's what it's like when you get up here.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people say that. I've lived in 23 countries around the world, and people say, why the Northern Rivers? And I say, it's the geography. There's something about the geography and the people. It's a very special place.
It really is.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey into the documentary Out of the Mud.
Yeah, so, about 3 years ago when I moved to Australia, I started this platform called the Heart Atlas, which was born out of a seed that had been in me since I was little, of just wanting to tell stories with impact that spoke to social, environmental, and ecological issues. And I started with some bushfire coverage and then some pandemic coverage, and then I sort of took a bit of a hiatus from the Heart Atlas. And then when the floods happened, it just felt, I was so overwhelmed with what was happening. I didn't actually take any photos or any videos for some time. I just got right stuck into helping relief work along with thousands of other people in the region. When I was living in Sydney, that's when I did the bushfire work, and I was about 6 hours away from Cobargo and Mogo, which is where I went down to help out. But up here it was, 20 minutes to Mullum, 25 minutes to Lismore, surrounded by areas that were just smashed. And it was surreal watching that water come in. My neighborhood I wasn't personally flooded, but my neighborhood was flooded in, so that on that Monday I was stuck at home. And, you're just watching the news as the water just rose and rose and rose until people were on their roofs. And it was just, if you hadn't seen it for yourself, it felt unreal. And so I just got stuck into helping people, and I was just, my first day I went to Mullum, and I put a post up on the Byron Urgent Flood Support Group on Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm in Mullum, if anyone needs anything, let me know. Within an hour I had about 30 or 40 requests, asking, please go check on my parents, please go check on my brother, I haven't heard from him. Oh, this woman's got medicine that needs to be on ice and upper main arm. Frantically running around trying to help people. And I went on like that for a couple of weeks, and then I just realized, the need was so great. It was just this black hole of need. It's an enormous region that was impacted. Obviously Lismore was smashed, but all of the surrounding rural towns were pretty much also almost decimated. And so I felt like, okay, well, I want to keep helping, but I need to do it in a way that's sustainable, and I want to look at the broader issues that are keeping these people from recovering. And so I began to document and speak to people and set up interviews and pulling in some cinematographers, and in no way did I set out to do a feature documentary, but that's what unfolded.
Well, we're so glad that you are. Just want to pick up on that point, how do you think the Northern Rivers is recovering?
Honestly, people are having a really hard time. And I've spoken to hundreds of people at this point. We've got about 25 interviews on camera, but people are doing their best. They're incredibly strong, smart, you know, having to deal with all this paperwork and applications and just rebuilding their homes with no knowledge of how to. I'm like, I have no idea how I would rebuild a house.
I heard the story this morning of someone who's rebuilding their home and putting their skirting boards up a metre. So the next time that there's a flood, they can just rip the skirting boards off and have the water flow through. And I just think how terrifying that must be, just to go, right, this could possibly happen again. So I guess, you know, what do the communities in the Northern Rivers need right now?
I think more than anything, we need an overarching comprehensive plan and really transparent, clear, compassionate communication from the government. The community organizations, there are a handful that are just doing the most incredible work: Resilient Lismore, Curry Mill, Wardell Core, Korakai Hub, and many others. But they're doing things, you know, they are stretched so thin because they are doing so much, and they've been doing so much since the very beginning or before the beginning. And, you know, the people in Lismore are still waiting to know, are we going to be offered buybacks or land swaps? Is that something that they've just promised and are again are not going to follow through on? And I just think we've got a third La Nina on the horizon. This is absolutely terrifying. We can't wait another day. These people need options and a plan. Right now they're building back with core flutes and salvaged wood because they don't have the money, they don't have the means. So even if people wanted to make improvements, you know, to me it's quite criminal what's happening. So they need a plan, they need more resources. It needs to be integrated with community response. So you're about a third of the way through filming your documentary. Tell us a little bit more about what the documentary's about and what you hope to achieve with it. So the first third of the film is focused on the aftermath and what I call the disaster after the disaster, because this is really an entirely new disaster than the floods. And this is about, you know, the quiet suffering that's happening behind closed doors. It is a big shift from that graphic, confronting, in-your-face water that you saw, where everyone could acknowledge this is a crisis. But this is a crisis now. You know, people living with one PowerPoint and no hot water and not enough money to buy food. And, you know, there's varying levels of challenge, and people are doing their very best, but people are living in squalor. And so that is the first third of our story. These are very heart-centered, personal narratives. We've, you know, been graciously led into these people's lives, and they're amazing. They're doing things that I don't know that I could do myself. And now we're pushing for answers, and I'm calling people up. I'm trying to set up meetings. I'm trying to figure out, where has this red tape gotten tangled? Why isn't this help getting to people? You know, where is it getting stuck? And so really pushing the advocacy.
So you've told me that the final phase of filming, you'll have engineers, architects, climate adaptation and mitigation specialists, educators, community members and elders to develop a new vision of the Northern Rivers. So, I mean, do you have a sense of that vision yet, or, you know, is it too early?
Well, I am not an expert on these things, which is what makes it so exciting going out and asking people that are experts. I definitely have some ideas, and the reason why I've settled on this as the last phase of our filming is because we need to move the conversation forward, and if we're still waiting on a plan from the powers that be, maybe they need some help, you know, and there are so many incredibly smart people here. I had a meeting with Sue Higginson, who is an MLC, and she used to be an environmental lawyer, and she is just an absolute weapon. And I asked her, you know, if you could change the floodplain, what would you do? And this is going to be so controversial, but one of the things she said was the levee needs to come down because it creates acceleration, and that's why things flooded so fast and with such ferocity. And we've become dependent on these sort of gray building structures that block nature and warp it, and we keep trying to build higher buildings and build higher levees, but the climate is changing, the amount of water is changing. We've seen that levee may or may not, you know, be doing what it's meant to do anymore. And she said, you know, we need to let the floodplain be a floodplain. It needs to be blue and green. There needs to be parks, and water needs to come through Lismore. And of course, with that said, the people that are sitting at the bottom of the Lismore Bowl, they need to be somewhere safe. They can't, you know, they can't be there. And so there are solutions. You know, people keep saying it's too expensive, it's too complicated, but we've seen how expensive is it to keep rebuilding a place that is, you know, 5 years ago smashed.
Yeah.
And the trauma of enduring that, you know, people listening to the rain at night.
Yeah.
We can't.
That's exactly right. There's so many people traumatized just by the sound of rain. So, I mean, what do you need in order to finish this film? It sounds so important. We need it. We need it done. What do you need to do to finish it?
You're so sweet. Thank you for the support. I mean, yes, thus far it's been mostly self-funded. We've received a couple small donations here and there, but we need more funding. So, yeah, at this point I'm taking a small step back from the filming to just get really organized, pull more of a team together, and fundraise. So we've got a GoFundMe. You can search The Heart Atlas by Olivia Katz, and you'll see our Out of the Mud fundraiser.
How much more do you need?
Quite a bit.
So, like,
I mean, probably 100,000.
Yeah, well, that's not a lot for some people.
Yeah.
Some people who might want to support. Hopefully one of our listeners out there has got a lazy 100,000 that they can then put towards this important project.
Yeah, we'll put your name in lights.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm hopeful and I'm confident that you'll get the documentary finished. Once it's finished and ready to go, what would you like to see happen with it then?
Yeah, we would love to do some local screenings, perhaps even
here in Byron Theatre.
Would love to do that here, and then hoping to get it distributed somewhere. I think SBS would be the dream.
Yeah.
It'd be great to have it up on SBS where people can watch it for free. And you know, the vision is that we would come up with a vision for the Northern Rivers that could lead us to a place where the Northern Rivers could be a shining light for the rest of Australia. How do you adapt with these intensifying natural disasters? You know, this is worldwide. The Byron Shire is beloved and a destination, and right now the region is a gaping wound, but it could just as much be a shining example of how to build back better, how to work with nature, how to adapt. And so I really do believe in this project, and yeah, I feel excited about it, and I'm so grateful for the community support, like getting on here with the famous ranger. They have.
Thank you so much. So, Olivia, just before we wrap up, what else do our listeners need to know about Out of the Mud?
Mm-hmm. Well, for those who are maybe listening and who are struggling, I would say, please keep up the faith. There are people fighting for you. There are people listening. You are not forgotten. And for those who want to help, please feel free to visit my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/the Heart Atlas Project. I've also got a list of local organizations that you can donate to, where those funds go right back into the community. So, keep the faith and keep helping one another, and be kind, and I believe that we can come back better than ever.
Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful words, Olivia Katz. Thank you for coming in, and we look forward to seeing Out of the Mud
Thank you so
up
much.
on a screen
Thank
near us soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.